demonstration. And I'm recording it so that I can share this with our virtual students too. So today we are going to get started on a small paper cut project. It's going to be 3 layers. You're going to cut 2 layers and then 1 layer will be your background. You can pick which one. I'm going to start with my first cut being on the half sheet of black paper. Then I'll do my second cut on a half sheet of white paper, and then I'll use my color paper as the background. So the trick with paper cutting is that all the lines have to intersect in a way that once you cut large areas of the paper away, the paper cut doesn't just fall apart. So that's why we're doing sort of a small project first, and then I'm going to have you guys plan a little bit more elaborate, a little more personally interesting project. So you get to like kind of take some of the inspiration from the examples you looked at in the WebQuest. So the first thing we're going to do is come up with a design, and you're going to do this with pencil. Make this bigger here. Okay, so here, everything okay? Okay, something shifted. It's fine. All right, so with pencil, you are first going to create a border. So the border is important because if I'm cutting lots of shapes from inside this piece of paper, I need that border to kind of hold together the framework of lines. So I'm going to go in maybe like a ½ inch or so, and I'm just going to draw myself a border. I'm using the sort of ridge on the ruler, but it's kind of up to you. I'm going to try to draw darker so that you can really see. Hopefully you can kind of see the pencil lines. If not, I will hold it up so that you can see this a little bit better. So once I have this border, I am not going to cut outside of this border. So I have a line inside. Boy, that's on a fun delay. A line that goes around. You can kind of see it here. Okay, got it? Border. Next step, I'm going to create a design. And for the design, it's just a pattern of lines. For this one, we're not worried about making it look like a particular picture or image of something. I mean, if you want to, you can. But I want you to first just come up with a pattern of lines where the lines all intersect with each other in some way. You can think about like your shattered drawing, some of the designs that we did from that. You could do, I mean, your lines can swirl, they can curve, you can do whatever you like, but the lines have to all connect to each other in some way. So I'm gonna, let me see, making this up as I go. Probably should have done this beforehand. Think about the spaces between your lines, because if you have really huge spaces between the lines, then that means you're going to have to cut out a giant space. So like if I left this whole big shape here, that would make a really weak space. It would be this big cutout space. It would be weak. So you need to make sure that you have enough lines so that all of these spaces are broken up, so you don't have anything that's too huge. So I have now a pattern of lines that connect to each other and they connect to the border. So yours can be more geometric. It can be more like measured out. I've had people do like more like grid type of patterns. It's totally up to you what you do for this first layer, as long as the lines all connect and you have that border and they connect to the border. So next I'm going to cut. So you're going to get a set with an X-Acto knife in it. And most of them have a cap. Most of them have a cap. They don't all have a cap. Some of them came with no cap. Sometimes they have an eraser cap on them, because I just put some eraser caps on these so that, you know, just to protect from the edges. I do have more X-Acto blades, so if you are cutting and there's a lot of paper tearing, then let me know. I'll give you a fresh X-Acto blade, because they do wear out. So you are going to cut inside the shape. So you can kind of see, can you see these lines up here? Kind of, I know they're hard to see because we're working in pencil here. In retrospect, I should have used white paper, but I didn't think about that. I'm going to cut inside each shape, and I'm not going to touch the pencil. So I have to go just to the inside of each shape. And a couple things about this. First of all, I am working on top of a mat. Everyone's going to get one of these mats. These are self-healing mats, meaning, I don't know, they heal themselves, but they're good for cutting on top of. So what I did, I cut inside the line without touching the pencil. That's the goal. I left a little bit of space. And now my next cut in the next shape over will determine how thick of a line, of a paper line this is. And then also something I should have mentioned right off the bat. The side with the pencil lines is the back. So I'm going to look at this side that doesn't have pencil lines on it for the actual artwork. That only matters if you are trying to spell out something similar to the relief block printmaking. You have to pay attention to the direction of your words, because if I have a word here like hello and I write it in the right way with pencil, when I flip it over it will be backwards. So you'd have to write backwards. So that's why for this one, don't do any words, just do a pattern. So now what I'm going to do is cut my next shape, and I'm just going to go from shape to shape. You will find what angle works best for you. Some people like to hold their X-Acto like a pencil. Sometimes people like to hold it with like the hand on top like this. It's just like whatever's comfortable and gives you control and doesn't slice your finger off. That combination of comfort, control, no blood, that's where we're aiming for. That's the sweet spot. I like to move towards me and then flip my paper around. I feel like that gives me the best level of control, because I think once you find like one good directional line that works for you, move the paper around to get that. So then I'm starting to see, you can see my cutouts, and you can start to see the pattern. So you can also see how thick and thin the lines are going to get. As you're cutting, play around with different thicknesses. This is about learning to paper cut, and the best way to learn how to paper cut is to kind of just make one, because then you can determine how far apart you want your cuts to be, how thick do you want your lines to be. Do you want your lines to go thin to thick? Do you want them to widen out? Do you want them to be very consistent? This is where you learn how to do it. After we do this first layer, you're going to take your second color, that might be white, and you are going to trace within your shapes. So let's say I've cut out all of these shapes. The next thing I'm going to do is draw shapes within each shape, and I'm going to then cut these out. So that's going to be my second layer. This is like it's like a shadow of the first layer. So I would then work on cutting these out. And this I'm cutting right on the pencil line for the second layer. That is a good point. So that way I'm going to have like 3 layers. I'm going to have the color underneath, and then I'll have the slightly larger version of the cutout in my white, and the main cutout in as the top layer. So that's what we're going to try. If you mess up on this, it's only a sheet of paper. I mean, that's the great thing about paper cutting, is the worst thing you can do is mess up a piece of paper. But the further along you go, the more careful you need to go. So once you get in the groove, don't speed up too much, because once you put in all of that work, you don't want to like mess it up. However, it's tapeable. So there are ways to fix it if you accidentally cut something you don't intend to. So it's a pretty forgiving procedure. I am going to give you the set number of your seat number. So you're going to need to find your folder, and you're going to need to grab one of these mats, and then I will pass out X-Acto knives.
Hey, Nikolai, do you need one?